Hey there, focus learners, and welcome back. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's explainer. We've got a really fantastic visual study guide lined up, zoning right in on Chapter 5 of your Grade 10 Geography syllabus, Manufacturing Industries of the World. If you're looking to completely crush this material for your exams, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to take all that heavy textbook data and turn it into a clear, super engaging journey right across the global factory floor. Okay, so to help you lock this into your memory effortlessly, we're going to flow through this in 6 logical parts. We'll start by defining what manufacturing actually is, then look at where industries choose to locate. After that, we'll zero in on iron and steel, shift gears into the automobile industry, take a quick look at ships, electronics, and textiles, and then finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with global industrial trends. Sound good? Let's get into it. Right, Section 1. Let's nail down exactly how we're defining manufacturing industries. Before we can really analyze global trends, we have to build a rock-solid foundation on what manufacturing actually means. Basically, manufacturing industries represent the process of producing finished or semi-finished goods using technical knowledge and skills to give raw materials a value and, maximum utility. When you're prepping for that exam, I want you to literally highlight those keywords in your brain: finished goods, technical knowledge, and maximum utility. It's all about taking something totally basic and transforming it into something incredibly useful and valuable for us. You can really think of it like a simple 3-step formula. Step 1, you grab your essential raw materials. Step 2, you apply a technological and mechanical process. This is where human skill and heavy machinery come into play. And then step 3, boom, out comes your finished product, which now has super high utility and immense value. Breaking this giant economic concept down into these 3 steps makes it so much easier to see how, say, a literal lump of clay becomes your favorite ceramic coffee mug, or a random chunk of metal turns into the smartphone in your pocket. But it absolutely wasn't always massive assembly lines and robots. If we rewind back to the 18th century, way before the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, most of this production was done through what we call cottage industries. That meant small-scale, manual labor happening literally right inside people's homes to make basic everyday goods. Contrast that with the modern era. The Industrial Revolution completely flipped the script, moving all that production into massive factories. Switching to complex machinery and new tech radically transformed both the capacity, like how much stuff we can actually make, and the sheer quality of the industrial goods we rely on today. Moving on to Section 2. Let's talk about where exactly these industries actually choose to locate. Think of this kind of like a giant global board game. Why is a massive factory built in one specific town, but not the town right next door? Well, an industry needs a few very specific things to thrive. It needs the availability of raw materials like iron ore, coal, or limestone. It requires a massive capital investment because factories definitely aren't cheap to build. It often needs port facilities for importing materials and exporting those finished goods. It needs access to consumer markets. And increasingly, it needs highly specialized labor, which today often means mechanical labor and robot technology. Just keep in mind the importance of these specific factors totally changes depending on the type of industry, the tech available, and the time period we're looking at. Okay, Section 3. Let's dive into our first specific industry, iron and steel production. Iron and steel is super important. It's actually often referred to as the crucial base industry because it heavily determines a country's overall technical strength. It acts as the fundamental raw material for almost everything else. Without it, you don't have machinery, you don't have electrical products, and you for sure do not have transport equipment. The whole process essentially involves taking raw iron ore, smelting it down into pig iron, and then mixing it with other metals and seasoning it to produce high-strength steel. It is quite literally the backbone of our modern global economy. Now, here's a really interesting piece of trivia for you. During the early stages of the Industrial Revolution, a staggering 90% of the raw material used for machinery and transport was iron and steel. But then we see a dramatic drop down to just 65%. You might be wondering, why the sudden plunge? Well, it was all because of the discovery and widespread use of aluminum. Aluminum offered a much lighter alternative, which caused the overall reliance on iron and steel to drop pretty significantly, even though, obviously, it still remains a totally foundational industry today. Now, those location factors we talked about, they apply very differently depending on where you are in the world. Take China, for example, producing heavily in Manchuria and Beijing. Their main advantage is the natural availability of iron ore right there on the Earth's surface. Now, compare that strategy to Japan, with huge centers in Osaka and Tokyo. Japan doesn't actually have those same natural deposits, so their crucial location factor is having strategic port facilities for importing raw materials and exporting their finished goods. And then you have the UK in places like Birmingham, which relies on a historical mix of easy access to local coal and iron ore, coupled with really great port access. It's all about playing the hand you're dealt. All right, Section 4. Let's shift gears and look at the automobile industry. Historically, the pioneers of car manufacturing were always highly developed nations. Why? Because building cars requires just an astronomical amount of capital investment. Back in 1950, the United States was the absolute, undisputed top producer of automobiles in the world. But fast forward to 2012, and China has completely taken over as the foremost producer. We also see incredibly rapid, massive growth across other Asian nations like Japan, South Korea, India, and Thailand. Meanwhile, older historical powerhouses like France actually lost their top 10 status altogether after 2010. It's a fast-changing, intensely competitive industry. So, what does the modern auto industry actually look like today? Well, it's really defined by the maximum use of robotic technology and automated machinery. Human hands are doing way less, while robots are doing so much more. Interestingly, it's also rapidly expanding as an assembling industry in places like Taiwan and Singapore. That means the individual parts are made all over the globe and then just shipped and put together in these specific locations. It still requires massive capital investments, and because of that, the whole space is heavily dominated by giant multinational corporations like General Motors, rather than small local businesses. Moving right along into Section 5, we're going to briefly touch on ships, electronics, and textiles. We definitely can't forget these other key sectors. While iron and automobiles often hog the spotlight in global economic data, these three, the shipbuilding industry, the electronics industry, and the cotton textiles industry, they follow the exact same geographical rules we've been talking about. They're all heavily influenced by those core location factors we outlined earlier. They require strategic locations near ports or markets, they rely incredibly heavily on capital and advancing tech, and they are constantly shifting their global footprint just to optimize production and keep costs down. And finally, Section 6. Let's zoom out and look at the big picture, global industrial trends. If you take just one major theme away from Chapter 5 today, please let it be this. The defining characteristic of our modern era is that manufacturing is rapidly moving away from semi-finished basic goods. Instead, the relentless push across the board is toward highly advanced, high-tech products. And how exactly are we pulling this off? By relying heavily on automated machinery and incredibly complex multinational supply chains. The factory of today is quite literally a hub of technological brilliance. To wrap things up, I want to leave you with a quick challenge to really cement this knowledge for your exam. Look around your room right now. Seriously, pick up your smartphone, check the tag on your shirt, or look at the brand on your computer. Can you trace those everyday items back to the global manufacturing hubs we just discussed? Applying this syllabus directly to your real life is absolutely the best way to understand the profound impact of these global manufacturing industries. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Focused learners, keep studying smart, and I will see you next time.